Oh, hello, my lovely. Welcome to this week's episode of Lotus Life The Podcast. My name is Rose Tautari, and I am, among many things in this lifetime, a human design guide, a soul mentor, an author, and a podcaster. And this is a show where each week we get to hang out and chat about all things human design. I'm here to teach you how you can thrive in your most aligned life by empowering you to understand your unique soul's purpose. Human design is a beautiful synthesis bringing together ancient wisdom and modern science, and is a way of really understanding the contract between your soul and the universe for who you came here to be, what you came here to do, and what karma you came to correct this lifetime around. This podcast, Lotus Life, is a celebration of embodying the beautiful lotus flower that blooms and thrives, growing from even the muddiest and murkiest of conditions in life. So get ready to lotus your life. So this week on the podcast, I thought I would do something a little bit fun, bring in something a little bit different to some of my other episodes, and do a bit of a day in the life of living my human design, and just to talk you through really how that looks and feels for me in terms of the way human design shows up IRL in real life for me. So for those of you who maybe have listened to some of the past episodes or are brand new, if you are, hey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And really, what I want to share about is living life as a mental projector. I know there's a lot of you out there that listen to this podcast, and I am so delighted that the 2% of us in the world have started to connect. And for those of you who maybe are other different projector types or the other energy types within human design, love having you here as well. And I think there's so much wisdom that we can all take from each other and learn from each other. You know, I'm a big fan of how just really human design is this beautiful tool that we can synthesize and integrate. And there's so much we can learn from each other. You know, when I'm giving human design readings for other people, there's just always takeaways that I find for myself within what I'm sharing and what we're talking about. You know, doesn't matter whether I'm talking to a generator, a mani-gen, a manifester, you know, another projector who's maybe got a completely different energetic makeup to mine. Yeah, it's just, there's so much wisdom that comes from it, you know, talking to another person with the same profile as me, and we can just really have some moments that are just like, whoa, this relates no matter who you are, no matter what your life experience or lived experience is. And it's just so incredible. And that's why I really just love sharing about this and love getting this knowledge out there in a way that, you know, I'm really passionate about it being something that each and every person can connect to in their own life, in their own lived experience. You know, it's not something that I want people to feel is too removed from actually living it in their life, because it is so relatable. It is so much a system that you can just entirely curate it to how it sits best within your lived experience. You know, it's not a one size box that you're expected to try and mold yourself to. It's like we shred the box, we completely break it apart, and you can redesign it, you can refit it, you can repaint it, you can do whatever the hell you want to do with that tool as to best suits you. You can cover it in glitter if you want and wear it as an outfit. You know, it is really just completely taking a piece of information or series of things and empowering yourself as to how that best suits and fits within your life. So that's why I feel really called today to share how my own understanding of my human design shows up in my day-to-day life, because I really just want to share in a way that maybe will, for someone who is listening, maybe it's you, that you can see how it doesn't have to be the really big momentous stuff. It can be even the smallest of things that can be so powerful and can just really shift the needle in terms of helping you to feel like you're thriving and in your own unique lane and just golden zone of what it is to be uniquely you. So for those of you who maybe haven't listened to an episode I did a while back that is called Living My Own Design, my human design is that I am a mental projector, which means that I'm a projector energy type, but I am the type of projector that only has my ajna center and my throat chakra defined. Every other center in my body graph is either undefined or open, so it's white. And so definition of a mental projector is that you will only have the centers from your throat up to your crown, any of that combination defined. So there is nothing defined or colored in below your throat chakra. So that means that it could look like being your crown or head chakra and your ajna connected and defined, only those two. Or could be like myself, that you've got your ajna and your throat center linked and defined together, and that's all you've got. Or you can have all three. So you could have your crown, your head, your ajna, and your throat, all three of those defined. But again, nothing below the throat is defined in your chart. So that's how to know if you are a mental projector as opposed to another projector energy type. And really, how that then plays out is into a few other specific ways in which that you show up. So that will mean that for your authority as a mental projector, your authority is what is known as sounding board, or in other places it might be referred to as mental authority. In other places it might be referred to as environmental authority. And really how that shows up for you is completely unique to any other energy type out of every other person. So that's why as a mental projector, it really is just empowering yourself to know that you're in the 2% of the world that experience life in this way and live their life experience in this way. And then my profile is the 6-2. So that means the 6, the role model line, is my predominant, line. And then the 2, the hermit, or I like to say the easy breezy genius, is my underlying subconscious profile line that comes through. So what that means for me is that really with all of that openness, especially as a person, within my chart, having so many centers that are either undefined or completely open, what that means is that, very much everything is centered around my environment. And now my particular environment within human design is natural shores. So we all have an environment that is highlighted within our charts, that is our soul's environment in which they most thrive and really feel their best within. And with mine being natural shores, it makes, it absolutely makes sense for me why I live where I live, which is in a tiny little part of the South Island of New Zealand, where it is very rural. We are basically, only a few meters from the ocean, but it is very much in a community that is, I don't even know, maybe a couple of hundred people at the most. It's very much a sort of I want to say almost like old-fashioned seaside holiday town. It's not somewhere that has been developed or built up. So it's very much that we're surrounded by nature. Some of our neighbors are penguins and seals and sheep. And, it's very much being connected to nature and the natural shoreline at all times. I can stand at my kitchen bench making my cup of cacao and see the ocean and hear the waves. And that's really important for me and my soul, because that environment of being immersed in nature, surrounded by nature, being away from, the sort of noise and the hustle and bustle of, say, a city or a more urban environment even. I lived for most of my life in that type of environment. I've talked about it in some of my really early podcast episodes that I actually spent, a good 10 years of my life as a teenager growing up based in Singapore, which is, one of the most intense city environments you can live in. And while at the time it was incredible and gave me so many opportunities for travel and cultural experience and just opening my soul to that sort of global cultural melting pot, which was a really beautiful thing. It also, once I'd reached the time when I needed to leave, it was just such a clear-cut decision for me that my time there was done and I was ready to move on. And since then, I've pretty much kept working steadily towards where I live now, which is, almost a process of just auditing continually, going more and more and more towards the sort of beachside rural retreat environment that I really thrive within. Okay, so let's start talking about my day, because that's really what I'm here to share with you about. And obviously, this is by no means me saying that as a mental projector, this is how you should live your life. This is just me sharing what works for me. So as you'll know, if you've listened to a few of my episodes, I'm always about empowering other people to take what works for them, leave what doesn't, be open to just absorbing, taking on board, finding the little nugget of wisdom. It's very much not that I'm sitting here saying this is how you should structure your day. I'm just purely sharing what has worked for me, what does work for me, and kind of really just this is accumulation of trial and error to get to a point where this feels really good right now and in the now for me and my soul. But I know it will continue to adapt and to change and to, keep evolving and growing as my soul evolves and grows. So I'm going to share about what's probably a typical kind of weekday routine for me, what a day in my life looks like during the week. So really the first thing that I really have to point out, I guess, in case it's not obvious, is that I work for myself and I work at home. So that automatically is something that I have to highlight as being a really big shift that my soul had to take several years ago, that I had to go through my own really challenging dark nights of the soul while I was still very much in the corporate world, cubicle life, and then finding my feet with, leaving that cubicle workplace and experimenting with other types of employment, other jobs, other roles, to come to the conclusion that I actually thrive best when I work for myself and when I work on my own. So that's kind of my caveat starting point when I talk about my average kind of weekday in my life. So one of the things that is a non-negotiable for me now is that as far as possible, I wake up naturally when my body decides to wake up. So apart from the very, very odd occasion when I might have to set an alarm to make sure I'm up with enough time to be somewhere, most of the time, 99.9% of the time, I allow my body to wake naturally when is suited to my body's natural rhythm. So that means for me that at the moment we're in kind of the tail end of winter right now. So for me, that's anywhere from about 6:45 to 7:15 is the sort of half-hour window when my body usually wakes up naturally, and I choose to be away from my phone when I wake up. So that means that I will get myself out of bed. I've got, 2 dogs that are following me around from the moment I get up. So my day starts really at a beautiful, slow, nourishing pace that I have chosen to cultivate. That's what feels really important to me in the mornings. So I love getting up. The house is quiet. My partner and my son are still usually in bed sleeping. So I kind of have the house to myself, apart from obviously my 2 shadows that are following me, waiting for their breakfast. But, that's a beautiful part of my day because I really enjoy spending my entire day with my dogs as well. They're a huge part of my life. So I'll get up, I will go into the kitchen, and kind of my first thing that I gravitate towards and that calls to my soul is to make myself a hot tonic of some kind. Now, you might have heard in other episodes that I talk about digestion and cognition within human design. And so mine is hot thirst, my digestion. So what that means for me is that I really enjoy making myself a cup of organic raw cacao as a hot tonic. So I will add other aspects to that are what my soul is calling for at that time. So it might be that I add, some other goodies like some maca. I'll make mine with organic coconut cream all the time, and, hot water. And I'll also often add in some organic vegan protein powder that is a really high quality one. I'll add a scoop of that, so it becomes a nourishing tonic for me and works really well for me to start my day like that, because I'm often not actually hungry until a lot later in the day. And one of the big life lessons that I've been going through in this season of life is actually learning to eat enough to fuel my body. That's really something that I don't know if you can resonate with, but I have always really struggled with actually eating enough during my day. So that's been something that really helps with that, to make that quite a filling, nourishing tonic that I carry around with me as I kind of go about my morning, starting my morning. And what I usually do is put on my slippers and I head out to just outside our back door, I have my studio set up in our garden. That is my home studio that I work from. And in there, I have a beautiful space set up that's very calming, very just, chill. It's got a couch. It's got some nice soft blankets and cushions. And that's where I head for my kind of half hour or so, maybe an hour of really just my quiet, slow-paced time with starting my day. And this time is really important to me because this is when I will diffuse some essential oils. I'll usually throw a whole lot of essential oils on my physical body as well that I'm inhaling and are going into my limbic system. And this is my time when I put on my noise cancelling headphones. I meditate for anywhere usually around 10 to 15 minutes, maybe longer. And because, again, you might have heard me mention, if you're someone like me who's got a defined ajna, meditating is really hard to do. So trust me, this is a practice that I have had to cultivate and work at, and it doesn't come easy to me. My brain is a really, really busy place. So that quiet space of solitude in the morning and meditation, I always put on a guided meditation. I just cannot, as much as I would love to be that person who could just sit and let their mind go blank, I am not that person, and that's okay. And so if you're like that too, I feel you. So I always put on a guided meditation, and just it gives my mind something to follow, which also has the benefits of allowing for that cultivation of that quiet space, just allowing for that connection, for that for me, it's a really deeply intuitive time when my senses are the most heightened, the most rested. I haven't allowed anything else to come into my aura or my nervous system. So it's a really beautiful time when I feel at my most tapped into the universe and most connected intuitively to my guides and my kind of team, my light beings, that are always with me. So this is something that really I absolutely thrive on. And I'll often, after I've spent that time meditating, I'll often, sit and maybe pull some oracle cards. I might journal on some of the messages that have come through, or just even spend time journaling on whatever has really come into my mind as a process of that meditating and that time, clearing space. It's like that process where, if you've ever really read much on or got into the, universal laws that, nature abhors a vacuum, right? So that process for me of meditating and quietening my busy mind kind of makes that space that it means the newness, the new energy, the new downloads, the new connections, the new inspiration, that all rushes in, and it's really incredible. So my journal is kind of my space to get a lot of that down on paper for me. It really helps to declutter my mind on the days that I maybe feel really overwhelmed with a lot of stuff going on. Just that process of writing it all down absolutely anchors me and helps me just to choose how I want to go about the rest of my day. It allows me to set that tone for this is how my energetic body is going to go about everything in my day. It comes back to even just the fundamentals of the law of attraction, that I know if I am going ahead to approach my day feeling the best, feeling nourished, feeling completely lit up and in my highest alignment as is for me that day. Obviously not every single day is this super high vibe, flying high feeling, which is okay as well. Probably do more on that in another episode, that we don't need to bypass our emotions either. But it really, by setting that intention of this is how I'm choosing to feel and how I'm choosing to go into the rest of my day, I found that to be so incredibly powerful, because especially as someone who has got so much openness and is so, I guess, energetically susceptible to the outside world, I really have found that I need that time and space to myself to be in my own aura, and that just really sets my intention for the day and sets my tone for the rest of the day. Now, I will actually use my phone to play meditations, but what I'm very careful to do is make sure it is set to do not disturb, so that I can make sure that my quiet time, that time of my intention and just allowing myself that space is completely uninterrupted. Because God, I love technology, but also the boundaries around it was such a huge learning process for me, especially understanding now how open energetically I am to the world, that even something as simple as a text message notification coming in can really affect my energetic body. If I can just see the first few words in that text message, it's like that's my energy gone. My brain is already working on it. As much as I try to then reel it back in and have that quiet intentional time, my mind's away. It's gone. It's already down the track with the to-dos, what I need to get done, or maybe, just kind of ruminating on what is the rest of that message around. So I have to be really, firm with myself to have that do not disturb setting. And trust me, just flicking it on is just so freeing, because it really means that, nothing is actually that urgent or important ever. And if it ever was, I know that, my partner Darren is there as well, that anything that is that urgent within our, bubble of family and friends, people are able to get in touch with him if they really need to. So yeah, it's been a steep learning curve for me over the years to have to, navigate that world, especially as an entrepreneur, as your own boss. You do have to really set your own boundaries and intentions really carefully, I've found. So by the time I've finished doing that, it can be anywhere around, say, 8:30 by the time I've sort of gone through my whole process of that slow start to the day. And really at that time, that's when I kind of almost like to think of it like I'm ready to emerge into the day. It's kind of like, hey, I'm here now. So I'll go back inside, and usually by this time the rest of my family are up, and that's really kind of my time for us to spend about half an hour, while I usually make myself something to eat, whether that might be a smoothie or something along those lines, that, we're able to connect and have a bit of time talking about our day ahead. And yeah, it's kind of a nice chilled out pace, because we're a house of 3 projectors. So it's very much that we have built our life to suit our souls. We know that none of us thrive with a fast pace of life. So we've given ourselves permission for that. The mornings start slow, they start quiet, they have that kind of just understanding that we all have our own rhythm in the morning, and that's perfectly okay for us all to be in that space. So once I've usually had that, it's about 9 o'clock, and that's when I'll probably at the first actually take a glance at my phone, for example. I might have sometimes with the early morning sunrises that are really beautiful, while it's in do not disturb mode, I might actually, film a quick clip of the sunrise that I then maybe at that time of the morning, once I've actually allowed my phone to sort of enter my world, that might be the moment that while I'm having a coffee, I might sit and post that on social media. I might put it on my Instagram stories or something like that. And then really it's only actually a kind of quick skim. I'm quite particular about not allowing that whole world of my phone to be the thing that I spend a lot of time on at that time of the morning. I've really worked to identify that, my energy works in a completely unique way for me. And I've come to really love that. And I do a bit of a process of visually mapping it out in my journal, a bit like a graph, so I know that my energy starts slow and low. And then by about that kind of 9 a.m. time, my energy's on the rise. I really have a burst that runs from about 9 o'clock through till sort of midday, 12 o'clock. That is my golden zone energetically, when I feel like I can take on the world, and I'll always joke saying that my my undefined root chakra is kind of part of the problem there, that it thinks it can do everything and take everything on. But I roll with it. I know that that's my time when my energy is at its peak during the day. So that's why I don't allow myself a lot of time on my phone. It's maybe just a quick glimpse to check there's nothing super urgent. And if there is, I'll flag it so that I can then sit down and attend to it when I do sit down at my computer, which is anywhere from about 9 o'clock till 9:30. And I'll deal with things on my laptop rather than my cell phone, because I feel like when I'm trying to do it on my cell phone, I'm distracted. I'm always doing it in one hand. There's always something else going on. I'm walking around the house. Whereas when I actually choose to go out and decide that this is my on time, right? This is my time when I'm working, I'm switched on. I am in my business. It's not a half distracted piece of my attention. So I'll head back out to my studio. I've got my laptop set up out there. I'll usually have a cup of coffee in my hand. And yeah, that's really my time to get into whatever it is that is my most important task for the day. So I've really worked to make sure that I don't overload my to-do list. So I kind of work on the principle, and trust me, this took a long time to get comfortable with this, but I work on the principle of having about 3 things that I choose to get done in a day. Now, for some of you might be like shrieking at the thought of that. And I know. I have been there. I have been that person with the full A4 page that is written in like size 8 font, crammed with every single little to do that you could ever imagine, that is so overwhelming and has left me like rocking in the corner from burnout. So I've been there. I know exactly that moment when your list is extremely fucking long. But, I've really set myself this energetic goal to say, I just have to do 3 things today. And that is what my soul is going to put its attention to. If I get more done than that, then that's fucking fantastic. That is really a really cool thing. And obviously I had, the energy to take on more. But I would rather do those 3 things to the best of my intention and ability, and not leave myself completely flatlined and drained at the end of every single day, which used to be my like standard go-to mode of how to do everything. So 3 things that are kind of my clear in my diary. This is what I'm doing today. And, on an average day, that will look like some prep for this podcast right here, whether that is, scripting out some information that I want to share, whether that is communicating with guests that are coming on the podcast, whether that is talking to my VA, Neris, who sending you so many loves and hugs when she's listening to this, putting this podcast together for you all. Because she's amazing and she's a generator. So if you haven't listened to the episode with that a couple of weeks back, that is a definite must listen for how we work together. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, it might be some podcast prep. And I, on an average day will be giving a human design reading. And so for those, I have them planned into the time of my day when my energy and my ability to show up for whoever it is I'm reading for is at its highest and greatest alignment. So I had to experiment with this a bit at the start to find kind of when my energetic golden zone was during my day, because obviously, logical mind tries to tell us what we should be doing, that your calendar has got all this space in it. So let's get busy filling all the blank spaces, and that's really been something that I discovered pretty quickly at the start, that my energy can't sustain that type of way of approaching my diary. So I book in, I have available times for people to book in for readings. That is when I know I am going to be able to deliver for them the best and brightest and most sparkly experience, because that is what my soul needs to do and is here for, rather than to try and deliver something at a time of day when my energy is lagging or has hit the floor, because that is kind of what I've found in my experience as a mental projector, is that that's real for me, is that my energy when it's on is amazing, and I love being able to share that gift of it. But that energy is so precious. It's not a resource that I have available to me all day long. It's not consistent for me. So I have to really respect that time when I am energetically at my peak is kind of the height of my powers, right? It's the height of my gifts to share with others. Or on the days that I'm not reading for other people, that's the most potent time for me to create, to absolutely connect to my source of my magic, what I am here to, my purpose that I'm here for in this lifetime. So that's kind of usually for me around 10 o'clock in the morning and lasts through till about 12. So I'll either be giving a human design reading in that time, or I will be sitting with my phone again on Do Not Disturb, and I will be writing or I will be creating. So it is very much using that energy at that time of day to its most potent capability for me. So then once I get to about 12 o'clock, that's when, again, this goes back to touch on what I talked about earlier about forgetting to fuel my physical self. Because as a mental projector, one of the things that I really find is that I kind of forget that I've got this human body that is carrying around my mind. And I don't know if you are another mental projector listening to this that you might connect with what I'm saying here, but I really do sometimes forget that I've got this, kind of physical, like for want of a better word, sack of meat and bones and skin that is kind of like holding it all together, that needs to be nourished and nurtured and fed. And I get really lost in my own head a lot. So by the time 12 o'clock midday rolls around, I really have to intentionally set aside the time to make myself something to eat and to make sure that it is a really nourishing, filling, meal that will sustain me, because that is something that for a really long time I kind of would just push past, and I would either not eat or I would, only eat sitting at my desk, and it really didn't work well for me with my body. So I now set aside the time that I not only make myself some lunch, I also put on my walking shoes, I grab my two dogs, who are usually by that time of day, they've had their, whole morning nap on the couch, and we head out for a walk. That I like to sort of go for a walk anywhere about half an hour to 45 minutes. Really, again, this is the beauty of where we live. It is just outside our front door, that I can literally walk out the front door with the dogs on their leads, and we can just go for this beautiful walk. And I'll often take my phone with me and listen to a podcast, or I might have a walking and talking meeting where I'll call someone that I need to connect with, and I'll talk to them on the phone while I'm walking. So It's a time that is just so good for getting out into nature. It's a walk that goes right beside the ocean. So it's getting all of that beautiful, fresh ocean air and seeing the bird life and, the seals that are lying on the rocks. And just also I love watching how happy it makes my dogs to go for that walk. They're a really beautiful reminder, I find, for just that deep gratitude for how incredible every single day is. There's such a good reminder for me that the smallest of things are so incredibly powerful at, just recognizing that they're a real gift every single day. So then after I come back from my walk, this is where this time of day might be kind of triggering for some people to hear, that really from this time of day onwards, I don't ever consider what I do to be work. Now, before you freak and go, what the fuck, Rose? Like, how do you get by or survive? Like, I couldn't possibly do that. I have to work an entire day. I totally get that because I have been there myself. I've done the whole, hamster wheel of working multiple jobs. I've done the 80-hour weeks. I've done, the style of heavily old paradigm, work the hardest, work the longest, work the most hours, prove yourself from how much you generate or produce or your productivity, right? Like, I have been there. I have been that person addicted to productivity books and podcasts and has been stuck in that sort of mindset that every minute of every day that you should be working, right? I know, I've been there, I've done that. I've got the matching t-shirt, tea towel, hat, umbrella, all of it. So it's been a huge soul learning for me to have to get comfortable with the fact that my afternoon time and space is actually not when I am able to be my most productive. So pretty much from about 1 o'clock onwards, my energy slumps so much. And I say slump because I'm only trying to, I guess, invoke for you that image of like a graph of like going from this peak at 12 o'clock to an exponential going down. And so what I do in this time of the day, really between about 1 o'clock and about 3:30 in the afternoon, maybe till 4 o'clock, is I use this time of day to be my time that can really be nourishing my purpose. And when I say that, this is very much coming at it with the understanding of, as a projector, the more you can revel and really just give yourself permission to develop your genius, to strengthen what it is that you are here to do, the purpose that you are here for, to, really just get so deeply into your niche that you are here to embody and to, guide others or share, or the magic you're here to create. That's the time of day when I really allow myself that space. So that might look like some time, brainstorming future visions of what it is that I'm here, that I am wanting to create in the future. That might look like planning out some topics for content that I'm going to create, or topics I'm going to talk about on the podcast, for example. It might look like doing some further self-study or self-development work, getting out my human design textbooks and revisiting some of the content. It might look like listening to a couple of podcast episodes. while I'm doing some photo editing. You know, it really is the time of day when I am still working wholeheartedly towards what I know it is that my soul is here to share, but I don't put the pressure on myself to have to be providing any kind of additional value or putting myself in that pressurized situation to have to be guiding others or sharing my wisdom with others during that time of day, because I know that it is not when I am in my golden zone. And so it's taken a lot of deconditioning to get comfortable with that fact, to come to a point where I understand that, hey, actually, this is the time of day when I allow my energy to kind of run its course, right? I don't flatline myself trying to push to go further, to go harder. Obviously, there are days when there are some things that I just have to get done, and that's okay. But I'm really aware that in that process, if I do push myself to do more work, work in quotation marks, in that afternoon time, I'm borrowing from my energetic bank. If I'm using my energy in that way in that time of day, there is there's a time when I have to give it back, basically. It's like a loan that I give myself, that I know if I use it, if I take out that loan that day, there is a time and a place when I'm going to have to pay that loan back, whether it is by taking, a whole day off during the middle of my week, whether that is, booking myself in for some energetic work, maybe a Reiki session. I really know I have to repay that energetic loan that I've taken on if I choose to use up that energy during that time of the afternoon. Then once it gets to about that sort of 4 o'clock time, that's when I'm very consciously making space to connect with my partner, Darren, and our son. So that is a time of day when we will usually kind of catch up on our day. Our son homeschools. He's just about to turn 15, so he's very much self-directed and self-led in his learning. Which means that homeschooling looks very different to if you're a parent who's homeschooling a primary schooler or something like that. So we usually catch up, we see how his day's gone. Darren and I will be able to talk about whatever it is that has come across his plate during his day, and that's our time when we make dinner together. We just have that time for connection and easygoing. We don't try and fill our days with activities, if that makes sense. Darren's a mental projector as well, so we're both very aware that our energy and our auras, our what we allow into our energetic bodies is really important. Our environment is extremely important to us. So having that kind of space at the end of our day where we're not needing to be running around attending anything, committing to anything, has been really good for, just being able to show up as the best and brightest version of ourselves. So we've both been in the past the people who had any number of evening commitments and other things that we would go and do, sort of after work, quote unquote. But for now, and in this season of life, this is actually what works and nourishes us the best, to have that intentional time together in the evenings, the early evening. And so we will, make a meal, as in other episodes where I've talked about digestion and how that looks for us in real life. You'll have heard how we kind of all make our own individual evening meals because we all have our own unique digestion within our projector energy types. So we try and honor that as much as possible for what is going to work for each of us. And we have time in the evening together when we, just are able to sit and watch something on Netflix. We might do a few episodes of a Netflix series. And this is something that I like to share because I think sometimes in the self-development or, spirituality world, there's a bit of a negative connotation around enjoying watching things like Netflix, that there's a bit of, I guess, a suggestion that you should be using all of that time in your evening to better yourself, to work on your mindset, to, you can use that time to do so much. There's a pressure there that our evenings are supposed to be more on time. And what Darren and I have actually found is that it doesn't matter what we're kind of watching together, but that actually is our time when we get to laugh together. We get to chat about something together. It's done with an intention that it's our time spent hanging out and enjoying our connection, right? I think sometimes if we were to say, oh, well, we're going to go off and listen to audiobooks or, whatever, learn more and do evening things, that's still a very separate activity. And in this season of our life, this is important to us and gives us that kind of playful, joy-filled, fun time together where we can enjoy something within each other's company. And that's not to say that if you are a person who enjoys using your evenings for self-development and for study, because again, like I say, I have been that person who has been there and done that. And so this is by no means saying that you shouldn't do those things. I'm just sharing our experience of what really works for us. And so it gives that kind of early evening wind down time. So I'm talking about the fact that, we are really kind of early nerds when it comes to evening time. So I find that my body needs to be fueled by about 5 o'clock. I need to eat early in the evening. It's what works best for me. And so by leaning into that and giving myself that permission, that really works for me. So I'm usually eating my dinner by about 5 o'clock. And I know, again, some of you might be shrieking while you're listening to this, but it's what works for me, what works for my digestion, my system. And then it means that, maybe a couple of hours hanging out, watching something together is really fun-filled time for us. And by about, I hate to say this because obviously there's a lot of people who probably will kind of freak out at how early I go to bed. But to be honest, by about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, I'm winding it up. Like I'm done for the day energetically, completely. I've popped my couple of magnesium tablets. I'm in my pajamas and I'm ready to roll into bed. And as a projector, and particularly a mental projector, that wind down time at the end of the day is crucial. There are some people who are designed to keep going until the minute they go to bed, and then when they jump into bed, boom, they're done. They're asleep straight away. Me, I need a good hour to wind down from the minute I get into bed. So that's why for me going to bed early really works well, because it allows me that hour to just wind it all down. Even though I might be really tired the minute I get into bed, it's like I can only describe it as a kind of tired, but there's still so much busyness going on inside my mind that I can't just jump into bed and then that's it. I have to have something that gives my mind that wind down time. My defined ajna needs that wind down time. And really for me, what used to happen was that hour of wind down time used to be an hour / 2 hours of just scrolling social media, right? Because I needed something to do and I couldn't just lie in bed and close my eyes. So I would grab my phone and I would just sit on Instagram for an hour, 2 hours, and all of a sudden look at the time and it's 10:30 and I'm like, holy shit, I have been lying here in bed doing the same thing again. And so what I came to the realization was that, yes, my phone is a handy tool for me to use, but in a way that is best for me, that nourishes me. So what I do is I grab my noise cancelling headphones and I use my phone, but I will listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or I will use it to lie in bed and listen to something, or sometimes I'll use it to read. But to be honest, by that time of night, my eyes are usually really tired and I'm a little bit wary of kind of reading off a screen sometimes at that time of night. So I try and listen to audio if I can, but sometimes I'll read, sometimes sometimes my mind might be in, investigative mode and want to learn something. So I'll kind of allow myself that. I'll Google stuff and I'll, if I'm happy to be in that frame of mind where I'm reading, I might use it for a bit of an hour of kind of piquing my interest, with reveling in some sort of random information that's kind of fun to get into. But again, being really mindful that it's my wind down time. So I'm not wanting to get into something that is too heavy, too involved. Sometimes it's just really allowing myself that process of giving my ajna something to do that is kind of tiring it out finally. So by the time I've allowed myself that hour, it's anywhere around about 9:30, and by that time that I've given myself that hour to wind down, I am ready to go to sleep, and it's very much having that drive to allow myself the permission to sort of use my phone for what is beneficial to me without indulging too much in what I would call for myself behaviors that I know are affecting me in a negative way ultimately, which is things like scrolling social media, allowing that world to enter my energetic body. Because again, being so completely open, even just reading a post that is, say, heavily emotional and the emotional share, even though I absolutely want to be there to support that person, if I take that on board into my energetic body, my solar plexus, my emotional center, is completely open. So I absorb and I amplify the emotions of what someone else is sharing. So it doesn't matter that I'm reading it or listening to it through social media. I take it on board, I amplify it, and all of a sudden I'm left with a sponge, an emotional sponge that is filled up with other people's energy and their emotions. So I have to be really aware and conscious and have those firm boundaries for myself to make sure that I am not taking on board that information in a time and a place that is not supportive and nourishing for my soul and myself. So I hope this has been useful. I hope that you, as I say, can take what works for you, leave what doesn't, take the nuggets out of it that maybe are pertinent for you in your lived experience. And I just thought that would be a really fun way to share about my day. You might listen to it and go, that sounds like my worst nightmare. For anyone who is, I should probably mention that I'm single definition, which by default, because being a mental projector, being single definition, but some people who may be a triple split definition might listen to that and go, you're not around people, and I need people and I need the excitement. And for other, profiles might go, oh my God, I just need to be in and amongst everything and in the kind of whirlwind of life, and I thrive off the vibes of other people and things like that, which is so perfect for other people. But for me and for my soul and for the time in my profile that I am, being in my mid-30s with a 6'2" profile, this is the type of life that this season of life right now is what nourishes me the most. And that blissful solitude, the natural environment that I'm surrounded by, the rural environment that's really quiet and peaceful and moves at that deliciously slow pace, is just exactly how I survive and thrive and live at my best and brightest. And as I say, it's taken a long time to really experiment with that and tweak it and continue to develop what works best for me. So as of for now, that's a typical snapshot into my day and my world and my life and my energy and how that all shows up for me. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening in. If you resonated with anything on this episode, I would love to hear it, because obviously, again, our lived experiences are all so incredibly different to each other. And that is the beauty of human design and this beautiful human existence that we all get to live within. So if you love this episode, make sure to let me know. I love to hear from you. My DMs are always open. Tag me in a screenshot if you are listening in. Send me an email if you'd like. And if you haven't already, come on over and join the Lotus Life Facebook group. The link to join is in with the show notes for this episode. And as always, enormous virtual hugs through the microphone, and I will see you on the next episode.